Well, good evening. And it is evening. It's January the 27th, and I thought I might demonstrate what I call my isolation room, my fig isolation room. And so let me carefully go down these steps and open up the cellar door. Nice heavy wooden plank door. And we'll come over this way. There's my watering buckets. I will demonstrate this concept that I thought of a few years ago and my son built for me. I was thinking one day, why not select a corner of the basement in one of my buildings and isolate a corner, maybe where there was a window to let in some cold air whenever I wanted to, or for temperature control. And all of a sudden I came up with an idea, which I'm going to show you, which has worked out beautifully the last few years. Let me see if I can get... I keep a lot of my figs in my, what I call fig cellar, which is a root cellar, which I designed and built by myself. Well, my son helped me. And I overwinter a lot of figs in my fig cellar, which I have on tape, if you want to review some of my tapes. And this was another concept that I thought of. There's a window there, which I can adjust. There's a little vent. It's completely dark in here, as you can see, during the day. And, well, I got the light on my camera. And then there's another window over there that I can do adjustments to. Now, that goes to the crawl space of another section, which isn't a full basement. And I can regulate the temperature through there, too, by adjusting that window over there, as you can see. I very seldom ever need to do that because the fact that I insulated, if you can see up there, I've insulated this entire room and built it with its own door, and everything is insulated, including the ceiling, which in this old building has very heavy wooden plank floors. But the insulation is all you need. And the temperature in this room is at least 15 or 20 degrees or more, usually more in the winter, colder than the rest of the basement. Here's my heater, not far away. And because it is an isolation room, and that's why I dubbed it that, because it is truly an isolation room and insulated in every way, in every place. Let me slip over the side here so you can get a good idea of how I constructed this. It was pretty simple design. I designed it and thought about it, and then my son put it together for me. Let me go back for a second, though, and talk about these fig leaves that are piled up here. I don't know if any of you have ever realized how wonderful the fragrance is of fig leaves, especially as they dry. I don't know why no one's ever thought of a fig cigar, honestly, or even a mixture of tobacco and fig leaves as a cigar, because the smell, I mean, it's just wonderful. It's just a beautiful, wonderful fragrance. And my wife, Debbie, she'll crunch them all up, break them up, and put them in water on the wood stove. And when the water's boiling to provide humidity for the house, the aroma of the fig leaves just permeates the whole house. It's wonderful. And so I don't just sweep up the leaves from the isolation room. I take the leaves and sweep them, and I put them in a pile, and I leave them there all winter long because they just give this basement a wonderful fragrance that I just absolutely love. I noticed many times in my in-ground trees that I have cats that hang out underneath the trees very often because they just love the smell of fig leaves. Everything seems to, and I certainly do appreciate them. Now let's get back into the isolation room and talk about some of its construction. These figs, every year, they stay beautifully in here. And I mean completely, totally, and absolutely perfect. Look at them. You can just see how beautiful they are. Look at them. They're healthy. I got some more light here. Now these I just put in here. My friend Vito from New York sent me 2 beautiful specimens. I sent him a supply of cuttings, and he sent me in return Angelo's Dark, which is right here. He's such a wonderful man. I love him dearly. He's just a great friend. And this one is Angelo's Dark. Let's see if I can get this on here, which many people have said is just a very, very good Mount Etna type. Unfortunately, I kept it in my window, my back window where it's cold in my house before I brought it to this room. I just brought it here today. And it started to actually, they're very healthy. It started to actually bud out a little bit. But now that it's in the isolation room, no problem. Now this one is a variety that's very interesting. And I would like to talk about this more in the future because this is an exciting variety. It's long yellow, not to be mistaken with the yellow longneck or any of the other honey figs that are often used incorrectly or identified incorrectly. This one is a different type of fig. It's an extraordinary fig, and my friend Vito, who lives in New York, in Zone 4, and is still a very, very successful gardener and a very, very successful figster, if you will, he is able to ripen long yellow in Zone 4 with no greenhouse. And they're big, delicious yellow figs. I've never tasted one, but with any luck, I will this season. And so I thought I'd feature that a little, talk about these 2 varieties, Angelo's Dark. There is a video about the Staten Island get-together, the Fig Fest. I think it was 2000 and, let's see, maybe it was 18. And Vito is interviewed there, and he and his brother talk about Angelo's Dark and Long Yellow. I have quite a few varieties. I've got a lot here. There's Ronde Bordeaux. There's another of my Smith. Right there is that's Black Madeira right there, which is grafted and is doing very, very, very well. You can see how healthy these plants are. Let's get a better look at them. Whatever they are, there's so many different types here. This one here is, I don't know. Oh, this is a certain kind of Chincoteague Celeste, which my brother-in-law is growing, which is just a superior strain of Celeste. Here's Black Greek. I mean, there's just so many varieties in here. And I've been cutting back on my varieties. And I just, every year, I just cut back. There's Genovese Nero. I've got Italian 258 in here. I've got a beautiful, beautiful specimen of Smith in here. And you can just see how healthy and how vibrant. I'll put some more light with my flashlight. And how beautiful they stay in this isolation room. Here's the leaves. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, oh, the smell. I just love the smell of these leaves. You might want to try it. Here's a lot of my varieties here. Here's another black Madeira, a beautiful black Madeira. And you can see how vibrant and how healthy it is here in the isolation room. And the temperature stays in here around 40 degrees, 45 in the dead of winter at least. There's Latarula. Here is Nero 600, a very good variety of Violet de Bordeaux. That's black Madeira. I've got a lot of figs in here. There's Canadria, and this is Battaglia Green. BG, Battaglia Green. This is another of the, let's see, what is this one here? Oh, this is Ben's Golden Riverside, and that's a beautiful tree. And look at how nice it's doing. Look at the buds on it. It's doing well. I took a cutting and gave that to a couple cuttings and gave it to my friend recently. Let me step back here. There's a lot of different little varieties in here that I intend to have a lot of fun with this coming spring. Let me back out. But again, just take a look at this construction. Anybody can do this. I did this out of treated wood on the bottom because wood against concrete will rot eventually from humidity if you don't use treated. So I use treated on the bottom only, okay, on what they call the plate. And let's take a look at some of this here. Yellow long neck. YLN, yellow long neck, a beautiful, beautiful tree, and look how healthy it is, as you can see. You can see the construction. I wanted you to see it. I put foam in any little spot where some heat could get in from the cellar. I blocked it out. Again, I have that window to regulate temperature. I've got everything dark. I've got that plastic over that window, and I can regulate that window. There's a vent in it, which I can bring in cold air if I want, but I don't need to do it because this room stays, as you can see, this room stays a beautiful temperature all winter long. I don't have to worry about them freezing, and I don't have to worry about them budding out at all. Not until it's time in the spring will they bud out. And then I can get a jump on this for season here too, because I don't have to worry. I never have to worry about the figs budding out too early, and it stays cold and dark in here until well into March, and then they'll start to show signs of wanting to bud out, and then I'll pull that plastic off, and I'll leave them in here, and I'll let the sunlight get in, and they'll bud even more and swell. And when I finally get them to take them over to the greenhouse or out in the yard up against the house where it's warm, I'll have a 2 or 3 week jump on the season. This is a good concept. This is a concept which has been extremely successful for me. And I wanted to share it with you. It's so easy to do. Pick a corner anywhere in your basement and isolate the room. I've made sure that there's no spaces here. Let me turn off this light here and see what it looks like with just the light from the camera. There we go. And I use this again along with my fig cellar. I've got a door, and then I put these little boards here right up against the bottom so that there's no draft, there's no exchange of air. This basement stays pretty cool. It's not real hot to begin with. And then because of the isolation room, which you can see, is very well insulated and tight, it will stay very cold. Those outer walls, those cinder block walls out there, are very cold. And then, of course, I've got the windows for ventilation if I need it. Again, I don't need it. I never did. But if I had to, I could open them up for colder air to come in. But they're asleep. They're well asleep. And it is a very successful method that I just wanted to share with you today. It is January the 27th, 2020. There's those beautiful, fragrant leaves. Look at that. Oh, they smell so good. You have to give it a try. Give it a try. Fig leaves. They're wonderful. And with that, I think I'll end this video. Walk this way. Thank you for visiting. This is a short video, but I hope it was useful to many of you out there that are always looking for another means to overwinter your figs. This is a very, very successful method. I've had tremendous luck with this method. And give it a try. If you have a basement, you should be able to isolate a small room. It's very inexpensive to build it, very easy to do it, to design it. And it's very, very, very effective, as you can see. And it's been successful. It's been 3 years, and it's been very successful. And I'm just very, very happy to share this information with you. I love my isolation room. I love my fig cellar, and I find them both invaluable to me. I just absolutely love them both. I never lost a branch, not in my fig cellar. I never lost a tree. I do have to water in the isolation room. You do have to water. Let me open it up again and make that clear. I just finished watering them. I only water once a month. And I should talk about that for a little bit because there's a lot of misconceptions about that. You don't want to give your trees like a half a cup or a cup a month. Fig growers will eventually find out that it is much better to give them a good watering and do that infrequently. It's better to water them thoroughly. When I say thoroughly, don't soak them, but get them completely wet like I have just done. Okay, you can see that. I water them thoroughly, through and through. I don't get them dripping wet. There's a little bit of dripping here and there. It's okay. But you don't want to do it often. That's the point. And I find that the bag material, the grow bag material, is superior because it dries out faster and you're less likely to get root rot. I never had a problem with root rot ever because I'm very careful with what I do. I've been doing it a long time. Some of these are in plastic pots. Very few of them are. They'll all be transferred into grow bags in no time, well, in the spring. Most of them are in grow bags. Most of everything in my root cellar is in my root cellar, what I call my fig cellar. That also is in grow bags. And I find out that they don't get too wet that way. They dry out sufficiently, and you're not going to get root rot as much. I like them way better than plastic. And you can water them thoroughly and then just don't water them again for, say, 3 weeks, a month. And I always come and I give it a little feel. I just lift them up and I want to feel the weight. And I know what they should feel like if they have medium moisture or if they're dry or if they're too wet. And then I don't water them if they are. So it's possible that I'll come back here in 3 weeks and some of these will not get any water. Some of them will get a little extra water. And some of them will just get a little bit of water, depending on their needs. But I actually feel each one individually. It's not a big deal to do it. And that's another reason why I like the isolation room too, because I can very easily access it and very easily provide the amount of water sparingly, okay, in terms of timing, not in terms of volume. I give them plenty of water. Look, the trees that are out in the ground all winter, let's think about it for a second. Okay? Now, this philosophy goes against maybe some of the traditional thoughts about not watering fig trees in winter storage very much. Let's talk about it. Okay? Let's scrutinize it. the fig trees that are in ground, don't they get subjected to rain and melting snow? Isn't the ground moist all winter long? Is there a problem? No. No, there's not a problem. Okay? And if you keep your figs in your garage, or if you keep them somewhere else, or in a greenhouse, which I don't advise, okay? All right, they're going to dry out, and they're going to need water. And you need to give them water. You need to be able to access them. You need to be able to have some room to walk through like I can do. I can walk through here. I can get all the way to the back. I can water this one. I can water them all. I can get in here and touch them and move them around and examine them and put water in each one and really test the weight of every single pot. And I can therefore administer the proper amount of water. And the key, again, to winter storage when it comes to watering is do not water often. Water thoroughly. Okay? Don't overwater, but water thoroughly so that the whole entire pot, okay, has moisture. You don't want to, fig roots when they're subjected to total dryness will die. You don't want to do that because you're just hurting everything that you've accomplished the previous year, all of the root growth. All right, you might still have some roots that are sufficient to allow it to bloom in the spring, but it's not going to have the vitality, the vigor, as if all of the roots had been preserved. And the only way you're going to preserve all of the roots is if you give them a good douse of water every now and then to make sure that they're getting the water they need, all of the roots, and then let them dry out thoroughly. It's not so much how much you water, but how often you water in the wintertime. You want to give them water. Give them water. I never have problems with my figs, ever. Never. Okay, because I water them sufficiently, and I don't water them too often. You don't want them to just lay around in water and be waterlogged and soaked, and that's why you wait. And sometimes you can wait 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then you go in and you check them and you say, oh, guess what? These need a little bit of water. Then you give them some water. Okay, it's not a big deal. It doesn't take rocket science to figure it out. After a while, when you've done this for so many years, you just, you develop a sense, and you can just feel when they need the water, not just by their weight, but you can just use common sense and figure it out and look at them and just take a look at them and look at the bloom, look at the buds, and you can tell this one needs a little more water, a little less. And I can't really overemphasize how important it is when you're actually trying to preserve your figs over winter, to provide them with the right amount of water. And I find that the mistake that's often made, more often than not, is not overwatering, it's underwatering. So you want to try to avoid that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed the visit. I love my fig isolation room. It has been a complete, total, and absolute success. My good son built it for me, and it just turned out so well, and it's a tremendous asset to me. You could see that I could put many more figs in there, but I have my fig cellar, and I have other means of storing trees, so I don't have to overburden this isolation room with too many plants, so that I can maneuver in there and do what I need to do. Okay, thank you very much. January 27th. Pretty soon it will be February. We're moving quickly away from the solstice, the winter solstice. We're heading into spring. I always feel better at this time of year because I know the days are lengthening each and every day. And soon enough, we will be in February, just a few days, and then March. And guess what? We're almost into the 2020 fig season and the growing season for all things. Thank you. Good night.